Hello and welcome to the King's Forum podcast show. I have a very special guest with me today, Claire. Hi, Claire.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
I'm good. Lovely to have you on my show.
Thank you for asking me. It's a real pleasure.
Let's see after we do it whether you're saying the same. That might change. Just to introduce you, Claire is an immune-centric and health coach. And you want to share your journey and how you got to this point. And yeah, you've been through a lot. I thought it was I was surprised how much. And you don't know until people tell you, do you? You see people on the surface and you make a judgment, but you don't know what people have actually been through until they share that with you. So
yeah, and actually I don't think you really realise how much you've been through yourself until you tell somebody else and they probably have that response actually, because you think, well, it was just my life, it was just what's occurred. So I never think of it being like that, but
it's true. It's just life, isn't it? And you're just going for it. You're not stopping and, oh wow, that was
no, you're not.
How did I get through that? No, you're just kind of just going, and you're just a lot of the time reacting and then dealing with it. So yeah, give us some backstory, Claire. How did it all start on this journey to becoming
Well, I mean, becoming an immune-centric health coach for me ultimately was because I've been into health and nutrition for very many years. I think probably the first time I realised I had an interest in food and its effect was probably around the age of about 12 or 13. My father reads the Daily Telegraph, and
All
he
right.
would have those supplement pages. And I remember looking at the recipe for a ragu and just seeing it was just tomatoes, garlic, basil, salt, and slow cooked. I remember then going home and looking at my mum's jar of dolmio, she'd kill me, and seeing there was about 18 ingredients and just thinking,
Yeah.
why would you buy that? And even at that young age, having a realization of that I couldn't pronounce these words and they was in the food that I was eating. So yeah, on and off I've been into health for 30 odd years.
Wow.
And then just before COVID struck, I did actually get a place at the College of Natural Medicine to do like a 3-year degree. And then I read The Immunity Code by Joel Green. And it was as though all of my food books that I'm surrounded by here, that I can see here, it was that one that resonated with me. And it was dealing with real life problems and actually finding a solution, not these diets that say you just fast for this and you just do this and you do that, because over a period of time these all have a negative impact on your body. They do. A keto diet is a fantastic tool. However, after a period of 3-4 years, you're hardwired to keep on eating. Fasting does the same. So it was that realization. So that was right at the end of 2019. I then approached Joel and he said to me, if I hold it off, then I could be one of his coaches. And I trained and was mentored by him and qualified last year. And I now deal with people, who have specific health needs. But also, actually, I was just thinking before I came on, I think one of my clients, she was 35, she's finished with me now, and she said the thing that she's got out of it is it's changed her relationship to food. And she said for 35 years she's been an emotional eater, but I've almost empowered her or helped her on her way to understand what she's doing to her body. That's the greatest credentials, not how much weight they lose and things like that. It's actually the impact on their health long term.
Definitely. Yeah, sounds like you're doing lots of great work. Give us some backstory then. Obviously you've told me about your journey. Talk about when you're 16 and you developed.
Yeah, I ended up with an eating disorder. I think it was very much a control issue. I sort of left home not far after that.
All right.
My parents didn't like my boyfriend at the time, and it caused massive issues. So I moved out of home really to be with him, really. And yeah, it was definitely a control issue. I went just for long periods of time without eating properly, and the impact that had on everything, on relationships, on my job at the time. I was going to go to university. I didn't. I put that off after doing my A levels. And actually, I'd probably say in some ways I have dealt with it, but if I have big problems still, even to this day, it will be a coping mechanism. And like my
Mm.
husband will say, have you eaten today? What have you eaten today? So he knows to me the triggers that when I am quite stressed, it is something that just goes out the window. It's just a coping mechanism, I suppose. And actually, I lost one of my really good friends as well, Lisa. She died 18 years ago. And actually, that's Matilda's middle name. She died of anorexia. Every organ in her body gave up.
Sorry to.
And yeah, that was such a shock because Lisa lived with me for a while when I was a single mum, when I had my eldest daughter. So I helped Lisa out, try to get her on the road to recovery, because I was on my way by then. I had a daughter and was really focused on nutrition for her. And I really tried to help Lisa. And then she moved out of mine and then was in a very abusive relationship. And ultimately she passed away. But I go, her parents, this is when I lived in Essex, her parents, or her mum lives not far from me actually. And Matilda and I and my mum go and see her mum every single September because she does a big fundraising.
That's
And
nice.
I always go along and see her. But yeah, sad.
So talk to me. Did it show up again? You said you were a single mother. So did
Yeah, when I
you sort
split
of,
with my eldest daughter's father, so yeah, I was with him for 8 years. I struggled at those points. It was just I'd put her to bed quite early. She'd go to bed about 6 o'clock, and I'd find solace in a bottle of hock. Oh, I don't even like white wine, but a bottle of hot, and then barely eating. And I was hospitalized many times. I was
wow.
collapsed and ended up, on a bit of a drip situation, and that caused its own issues because my father was quite frustrated. He saw me as being, a bright girl, 14 GCSEs, 3 A levels, and like, why are you not eating? He didn't get it. You are talking about 30 odd years ago, but he just didn't get it. He just thought it was a case of eat some food, Claire, eat some food. And it was much deeper, much deeper than that.
So how was your mental health at that stage? Because you'd experienced a lot at a young age. There's a lot going on there.
Yeah, yeah. I was very up and down. I was all over the place, I think,
Mm.
really. I was a full-time working single mum, though, so I had all that as well, where I was working incredibly long hours, sometimes till midnight, and I didn't drive at that point, so I relied on either public transport or to get a taxi overnight time. So yeah, it was up and down. It was up and down. I mean, I always cooked for her. She always had home cooked food, but sometimes I just didn't. And actually, times were tough financially as well.
Mm.
It would have been a case where she needed new shoes, or do you have that extra meal? And
Yeah,
maybe I use that as an excuse as well, really, in all honesty. But
not to
um,
eat.
yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah, again, like I said, I think it was just a coping mechanism. It was just it's weird to say just a point in time, but that
yeah,
was how it was then.
yeah, of course. So did you seek support? Did you look to counseling or?
Oh, I did. Yes, I went to yes, I saw a counsellor and then was advised that really I needed to go down the psychologist route because the issues were more deep rooted. However, that was then left that family members thought that, well, the words were, you don't want that on your medical records.
Mm.
And as though it was like such a stigma, such a dirty thing. And I was thinking earlier, I did get some Prozac for a period of time, but a very short period of time because friends noticed that my personality changed and I stopped using them. Um, So yeah, I haven't really got any experience of that, but I've almost made myself well in some ways, but also use things like exercise as well.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, in getting my endorphins raised and working out.
Yeah, so I'm glad you seeked help, and you're on a, I'd say on the path of feeling more, what's the word I want to look for today? Like you have some order, because there was a lot going on, and there's a bit more calm in your life now, and direction, should I say, as well, I guess, with finding health and nutrition and finding your way.
Yeah, and times changed. I mean, you know, I was a single mum from when she was 1 to nearly 5, so I had those years completely. And then I met my now husband, so
Yeah.
that altered everything as well. That altered the balance, if you like, and having somebody there to be able to rely on, not having to do it all on your own, and you know, without having to keep asking for help. So that was also a turning point. And then we started a business, and so yeah, yeah. And then we moved, and then we relocated from Essex to Norfolk. Um, so yeah, there's been quite a lot, I suppose.
Which led you to coaching. So where you at today? Where you at today with your mental health, Claire? How are you?
It's really good. I think my the biggest impact I had was when is having a nervous breakdown
Yeah.
um, in 2017. Now, I'd struggled for 2 years with a family issue, and I didn't deal with it. I got to the point that one Sunday night I was in here and I was just cowered down crying, just begging my husband to
Mm.
get me to a doctor because I wasn't going to live. And you know, I just got into such a space, into such a dark place. And you know, I look back now and I think, oh my goodness me, I struggled for 2 years because when he took me to the doctors on the Monday morning, the doctor said, how long have you felt like this? And I said, 2 years. He was shocked. He said, you've almost done it to yourself. I've done it the way I know, eating healthy, you know,
Yeah.
exercising and stuff, but I'd gone slipped too far. Um, and that was September in 2017. And I barely left his house. I couldn't drive. I couldn't put my rubbish out on the drive. I was like a nervous wreck. I don't know where September, October, November, December, January went. I was in here, but I don't know. I don't know where those months
Mm.
went. Christmas came and went. Um, yeah, it it was an awful time. I mean, I was medicated. I needed to have been
Yeah.
medicated, um, and I couldn't believe how long they took to work. I almost assumed that I would be
Yeah.
able to take these tablets and I would stop having panic attacks or stop having living on the edge or living in such a state. But it wasn't like that. It was months.
Months of taking medication. And was you exercising or anything, or was it just
No, not at that point. Absolutely not.
yeah,
I
couldn't
literally, I just used to sleep. I
really?
used to sleep day and night, day and night, day and night.
Wow.
Yes, it's the weirdest point because I can remember some of it. I remember because we had somebody in doing our bathroom, so I remember him being here. But apart from that, there is a whole void where I must have just gone so far into my brain, really, that
Mm.
it's almost inaccessible now. All I know is I didn't think I was going to live, or I was going to live. That was the ultimate, and that's why it scared me. And the
Yeah.
fact is, you know, my youngest daughter at that age was seeing me in
Yeah.
that
Well, imagine.
that position.
Yeah, strain on the family, your husband and your daughter. Yeah, it must have been a lot for them to cope with.
She's been very good. I think in some ways that's why Matilda is so in touch with her own mental health. I think just before we
Yeah.
came on, I said to you, didn't I? You know, she meditates in the morning, she does her yoga, she's surrounded by plants. I think she's very aware. I mean, when she done her GCSEs in the summer, she was real stressy and she started to get panic attacks and it built up. And, you know, you do learn things along the way. There are key things that she does, and she sailed through her GCSEs. But I was worried for a long while that it was learnt behaviour. I was thinking, oh,
Yeah,
she's
I won't
she's
imagine.
learnt it.
Yeah,
And then I'm like, oh, it's my fault that she's now going to be like me. And however, that's not panned out. So it's not to say that when she has struggles in life, she won't have those same symptoms, but she's not. I mean, she's very in touch with keeping herself zen.
that's great. Just talking getting to the other side of that, when you had the medication, you said there was months of you you know, just really not
Yeah.
doing much, just be dealing with your own kind of mind and
Mm.
getting through that. Coming out the other side of that, how are you feeling when you started to be able to function like you were before? And how,
Well, COVID. So when COVID struck, I thought to myself, because they shut my school that I was teaching at, and I went to join another school, and I thought to myself, oh my goodness me, I'm going to go back the other way. I've got to get a
mm,
control of
time.
this.
Yeah,
And because I was either going to go back into that dark space, and I don't want to go there. And I knew enough at this point about the gut brain axis and foods and your colon and your gut biome. So on May the 9th, 2020 was the day I took my last anti-anxiety and medication and antidepressants, and I healed almost from the inside. So I was making up vast quantities of bone broth, so really high in
yeah,
glycines and all your aminos, and then I was having it with things like chicken in it, and loads of raw veg.
yeah.
And I was doing that Monday to Friday, so while I was at school, and I was doing that twice a day. So I was fasting till lunch. I'd have bone broth at lunch, and then bone broth again in the evening time with chicken and all stuff in there as well. And then at the weekends I was just eating more usually. And I'm just so lucky I didn't have any symptoms whatsoever of coming off the medication. However, I wouldn't recommend anybody does it. It's something that I'd researched extensively, and I know people do. You know, I tried to get off my meds before by lowering the dose, but then I ended up just having more panic attacks, and then I ended up on a higher dose, and I sort of cycled in and out of that for a number of years, really. But that was the winning part for me. It was definitely having that knowledge of the gut brain, the blood brain, gut brain axis, the vagus nerve running from your stomach, you know, into your brain.
Wow. So what do you do today? What helps you on a day-to-day basis?
Oh, I do quite a lot, really. If I'm struggling with anxiety, as in if I wake up around 3 a.m. in the morning and I'm worried, stressed, I know that's my cortisol dump the day before. I know that I've been in the state, I've not slept in a proper parasympathetic, and that's a cortisol. Now, one good way of getting rid of cortisol is whey shakes, protein shakes. They're really good at diminishing. If I wake up with quite a bit of anxiety, I cold shower. I am such
Mm,
a big believer in that. And actually, I hum in the shower as well, because that stimulates the vagus nerve that talks to our brain, and it's really calming. As well as the cold thermogenesis, obviously, as well.
yeah.
I use red light. I love red lights in the morning. And actually, I do have a large actual lamp that I get out about the end of September. It goes in my loft in the summer, and then I bring it down, and that is like a brain stimulator for the morning time, because it's so dark. And I definitely struggle in these winter months. I know many people do. They
Say that. Yeah.
Isn't it? Because you feel like you live in a cave, and
Difficult
and
time of the year for lots of people. Yeah.
it
Definitely.
is, isn't it? It's so common. When I speak to so many people, they all say they feel triggered. They could just keep on sleeping, and it is really, it's the red lights that we need. It's what we miss in the
Definitely.
sunrise
I
and our
agree.
sunsets. So
And and also with that, the stresses of Christmas.
Oh gosh,
Uh,
and finances
the
this year.
finances. There you go. You got all of that going on.
I know. I say this is why I'm always so conscious as well of like giving people advice about food. But I'm so aware of maybe people haven't got the
Yeah,
funds to be able to eat a whole
exactly.
chicken or buy a whole chicken. So it's probably easier for them to buy that 99p pizza, which which then triggers, like for me, if I have a takeout or especially Chinese, I feel ill the next day. Sometimes I'm sick and I feel more like I've got like a hangover. And I know it's the toxins in your system, and I know all this, but I'm also aware that funds are not there for many people.
Unfortunately, yes, because obviously healthy eating it can be a lot more expensive depending on what it's on, of course.
It is. Yeah, my father and I have had this discussion for so many years. He thinks it's that people make excuses. It's not. It's expensive. I mean,
It is.
we was buying, the quite large tubs of blueberries in Aldi. They were £2.79. Then they went up to 3.80. What
Yeah,
is gone up over a pound? That's
everything's
that's
gone up ridiculously. I was looking at it the other day when I was shopping. Everything's
yeah.
gone up, so it's hard to manage that. See, this is the thing as well. It's not so
Yeah.
easy, you know.
No, and unless you've got some knowledge maybe,
Yeah,
and you just think, well, okay, then we'll have beans tonight. I'll buy just say nice of red kidney beans, and
yeah,
we'll make a curry with that. Or rather than having chicken at the price that those chicken breasts and stuff are, we won't worry about getting our protein from there. We'll get it from a plant
there you
source.
go. Exactly.
That's better, but not everyone has access to that either.
It's education, isn't it? Education so key. Food education.
Yeah.
Knowing all these things which you have. And if you do, that's the way you could still kind of not be spending X amount of money because you know all the different food groups and what can work. And, as you said,
Yeah.
a plant source instead of something like chicken, which can be very pricey.
But there's key things though as well. There's things that I've learned, that by having your potatoes, so it could be a jacket, it
Yeah.
could be, boiled, by eating that last in your meal, you're feeding resistant starch in your colon. Okay, so instead of having that as your meal, like your roast, say, just
Yeah.
leave the potatoes to last, let it cool about 15, 20 minutes. Eat that last thing in your stomach. That is resistant starch. That's feeding all the gut bacteria. That's going to give you
Wow.
so much more energy, your B vitamins, It's whenever as possible. If you can eat raw green beans or asparagus, or that is what feeds our bugs, and that is what triggers our B vitamins, and then our hormones, and it's your aminos and your serotonin, and so it's just good food, for those bugs that are helping our brains.
Definitely. So would you give all the things you've experienced in your life, what advice would you give to someone who's had suffering with an eating disorder?
Get help.
Mm,
If you can get help. I do know a few people that are involved in Beat and other charities, but definitely get some help, because like I said, I've lost my friend, so that could easily have been me. That could have been
yeah,
my heart that gave out. I was in no different position to Lisa whatsoever. Only the fact that I suppose I had my daughter, and it was a time for me to
yeah,
concentrate, being pregnant, and then having a child to concentrate on. So definitely get help, and the same with things like breakdowns and that as
yeah.
well. But also, like for medication points of view, I've sworn by, and my daughter as well, L-theanine. So L-theanine is the calming component in green tea. So you take them in the capsule form. They're really not expensive. They're about £6 or £7. You can get them quite a high potency. And so when Matilda will be before her GCSEs and things, she'll always say, "Mum, can I take some L-theanine?" And I'll say, "Yeah, take a couple of those." And she finds that really helps her calm. So it is like having your green
Mm.
tea, but in a much more concentrated formula.
Wow. Okay. That's great advice. So do you think all of these experience in your life has helped you become a better health coach?
Could only think it could have done, really, because I think you automatically have an empathy, and yeah, I do, because lots of people come to me to lose weight. A lot of it is about losing some body fat. However, you've got to have that mindset. So you've got to have an empathy with someone to be able to get into their head and really get to know and understand what's going to work for them. Because ultimately, they may want to lose body fat, but it's also it's their health, and it's all about empowering them, making them feel much more capable of being able to look after their own health. And if they'd say, like my lady that I said, she'd said her mindset had changed, her relationship with food had changed. And that's because she would go on benders and then have benders for a long while. Now she'll have a bender, but she'll just have a day. And then she'll get up the next day and go, right, and now I'll start over again. And now today's just the first day of the rest of my life, rather than just thinking, oh, well, don't worry about it. I'm going to eat junk again today and tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day. She's learned actually that she can switch off after a day. She actually has also realised how crappy she feels, to be honest, once she's eaten her buffalo wings and whatever else she's eaten. So I'd like to think, I hope it's been impactful.
Claire, thank you very much for coming on the show. What social platforms are you on, and where can people find you?
I'm on One Coach Claire on Instagram. That is my sort of favoured, really, social media, and my website is on there. And then I'm also on Facebook, but I don't really do a lot of social on Facebook. I don't really totally understand it. I've only been on it not even a year, and it works slightly differently. So I don't update so much, but you can find me on Facebook as well.
Again, thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, Mike, thank you. It's been wonderful.
Really enjoyed it, and see you guys soon. Please like, share, and subscribe the video, and follow Claire. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.